Okay, everyone, we're live. We're rolling.
Look your best problem, we're live.
Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here this morning for this Bhagavat Sravana. As you can see in New York, people don't usually get out of bed before 10 in the morning. So it's hard to get a crowd here so early. But I know that devotees are definitely coming. And we're very honored to have two exalted personalities here. And once recently they told me that HG Kripamoya mentioned how he often gets introduced these days, so I'm not going to introduce him as Janavi Harrison's father. Okay, just so that's out of the way. I'm not going, or Tulsi Devi's father, or the father-in-law of Namras Prabhu, or any of the other exalted family lineage that he has. So I'm not going to do that. Okay, everyone's clear about that. But what I am going to do is just give a little introduction. I feel very fortunate and blessed to have served a number of years with these two wonderful and exalted personalities. I was probably one of the only imports in the later years from the American Yatra into England, recently exported again. But so it was wonderful to serve in the UK Yatra, and I can say, I'll start with Mother Guru, who is one of the most exalted devotees, for sure. By her hands, the ISKCON London Soho Street Temple was built by going out daily and distributing Srila Prabhupada's books as one of the heroic Sankirtan warrior lady group that was existing in London, and collecting and distributing so that that temple could be built for the honor of Shri Shri Radha Landaneshwara. And round of applause for that. And then in later years, working so closely with the development of children and teaching and guiding in the Gurukul at the manor, as well as being an exalted, supportive wife, and giving birth to 3 amazing children, who I'm not going to mention, okay? Because they're just not that important. It's these persons. But raising those children to become exalted devotees and contributing so amazingly to the mission. Mother Guru also is a wonderful speaker and teacher, and has been giving much solace and mentorship also to many, many ladies especially, and also some gentlemen who take a lot of inspiration from her and her input. I'm one of them, by the way. So we're, and another one is here, so somehow I feel like there's a UK, a British invasion happening here. We've got a few Brits in the room. So we're just very, very blessed and honored to have Mother Guru here with us. So please, a big round of applause and Haribol! And then, an insignificant member of the family, Kripamoya Prabhu just happened to be coming with Guru Charana Padma Devi this morning, and she said, no, I'll let him give class. He likes to speak. So Kripamoya Prabhu, when I see him smiling and his eyes gleaming, I can't remember so many amazing events and experiences where Kripamoya Prabhu was always, as a manager and leader in Soho Street in London, it was like, who can be our guest speaker? Top name was Kripamoya. And we'd often be like, well, can we get someone else? Because we always want Kripamoya Prabhu for every event. And he was always there supporting the devotees in London. Also another courageous Sankirtan warrior. He's told many stories of his Sankirtan days on the London Underground and coming out covered in soot and breathing soot and so many different things like that. And also traveling to Africa and doing Sankirtan and preaching in Africa, and now traveling all over the world. And even I heard he recently gave initiations in, of all the places in the world, Nashville, Tennessee. And devotees came from far and wide in America to take initiation. He's also performed probably close to, 500 or 1,000 weddings. And whenever anyone in the UK or probably anywhere in the world gets married, they're like, is Kripamoya Prabhu available? because he is just the head priest amongst priests, especially in the UK.
Maybe that's Krishna's arrangement.
I mentioned his priestly abilities, and he did some mantra, stop the mind from working. So anyway, Kripamoya Prabhu also traveling, preaching, giving so many classes and talks, also responsible in the UK and throughout Europe, also was asked to give many, many talks on helping to develop communities and especially small groups. I seem to remember you gave a talk recently, I know on the morning show, I don't know if it's called the late morning show now or the morning show, or now it's just called the Non-Ras podcast, right? Yeah, so no plugs for anything that's going on. And also Wisdom of the Sages, speaking about small groups and community. He's been really, really a progenitor in that way in the UK and Europe of developing small groups and communities around the UK. So we are blessed to have him here today, and he's not speaking on Sankirtan mission activities, although that was the PowerPoint that I was sent. But this is the PowerPoint, so he is, but actually the official title is different. I should have changed the title. And the title is Principles of Spiritual Community Growth. So we're very honored and blessed to have with us this morning His Grace, Kripamoya Prabhu.
So if you please take a seat. Slide that forward a little. No longer sitting. You know that song, Dog of the Dawn? Yeah. You're singing. Hare Krishna. There was a Bhagavad Gita verse that says of introductions. You know, the opulence of the absolute. Of introductions, I am Jainatai. Bhagavad. They say you should only speak where you're loved. And I feel very loved. So it's going to start with a, as I say down in National, and start with a song. Another song. I'm sure you know this one. It's the one of the prayers of the gopis. It's from the Srimad Bhagavatam, of course. We'll have the translation later, but this is a song in which the gopis sing that those who distribute the messages of Krishna are the most munificent welfare workers. That's the next one. Tavakatamritam Tapta Jivanam Kavyabir Iditam Kalmashapaham Shravanamanglam Srimad Atatam Bhuvi Grinanti Guri Dajana. That's two times. That doesn't mean that it's cheating on you, but it means it's. That's not slow. I'll do one line and then you sing one line. Tavakatamritam Tapta Jivanam Advan Tavakatamritam Tapta Jivanam Kaviviritam Kalmashapaham split screen for those watching at home? Does the verse appear on the
They
screen?
can see it on the screen.
They can see it on the screen. Okay, lovely. Well, it's wonderful to be back in New York. Wonderful, especially on a Sunday morning. Yes, recently I passed the 50-year mark. I was a mere whippersnapper of a young kid at 17 when I first met the devotees of Krishna at a pop/rock festival /rainy day in England /someone stole my tent. And the devotees gave me hot porridge, which was tasting like ambrosia at the time. So in 50 years, what do you learn? Perhaps you learn a few things, because you see different incarnations of devotees. Devotees have different incarnations. We have the youthful, strong, courageous, risk-taking, youthful, out in all hours, enthusiastic newcomer. And we have the risk-averse, not so courageous anymore, fat around middle-aged. Don't know why I joined in the first place. I think I'll leave this gone now. Follow. And then we have the sage. So I haven't quite got to the sage category. But what does 50 years of Krishna consciousness look like, and what does it? What are some of the experiences that contribute towards a, what you might say, is a spiritual education? So I thought that I'd compile some verses, because some verses in the Bhagavatam are for direct inspiration. Can you hear me okay? Yeah. And some verses are simply for preparing us for the inevitable loss of faith at some point, or loss of direction, or loss of the guru, or loss of just loss in general. And we take stock from the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our book. It's a very special book. Sometimes we preach that Bhagavad Gita is our book. That is true. The Srimad Bhagavatam is the ripened fruit of the tree of Vedic wisdom, written by Srila Vyasadeva in his maturity. It's the one book that Srila Prabhupada translated before he came to America, before he came west. It's the one book that he spent his life translating at sometimes 1:30 in the morning, all the way through till 6 o'clock when you go for a morning walk with the devotees. This is life's work. So it's our life's mission to not only read and study the Srimad Bhagavatam, but to commit some verses to memory. So this is really the 10th canto. So, let's see. It goes forward with the what shift? What is this one? Okay. So I thought, as it's Bhagavat Sravana, how do you begin a Bhagavat Sravana? How do you normally begin? Is it interactive, or is it one person who knows everything speaks, or is it one person who doesn't feel that he knows very much, asking everybody else? How is it?
As you like.
Let me start with a little story, which kind of illustrates what I'm talking about. We had a long struggle to keep our Krishna consciousness worship open in England. The local government wanted to close us down because we were getting, in their words, too successful. Too many people were coming. And we didn't have all the necessary, as they call in America, codes, planning codes, which is usually a code for, we don't like you very much. You shouldn't be here in our part of the country, so you're the wrong colour. But the British people can't say that. So they have to say it's not supported by the code. However, we overheard conversations behind the scenes. So it was a big battle, 15-year battle, legal, political. And at one point we engaged the services of what's known as a Queen's Counsellor. These days, of course, known as a King's Counsellor, who's the top lawyer in the country. They cough, you pay. They smoke a cigar, which this one did, you pay. Everything you pay for. At the time in the 1980s, it was $300 an hour. Now it's probably like, $600, $700, $800 an hour. So they're very expensive. But do they know their job? Yes, they do. So this gentleman was an older gentleman. He looked a bit like Winston Churchill. Smoked a cigar, and he spoke like that too. Yes, I think I can help you, your organisation. Just give you the facts. Who are you? What do you do? What do you want? So I said, well, part of the arrangement was to give him the Srila Prabhupada Leelamrita 1 volume, which he promptly read all the way through in a weekend. Part of his job. We paid him to read the Prabhupada. It was a few $1,000 for him to read all about Prabhupada. And he came back at the end and he said, well, I've understood a few things from reading this book, and I understand that none of you really fully appreciate what he did. So he's speaking to us. You can't possibly appreciate what he did. Okay, why? So because you're all so young. Only I know what it's like to do anything after 70. I'm 74. For him to start an organisation at the age of 70 was incredible. But I can see that you don't fully appreciate that. Now the second thing he said was also very interesting. He said, I can see you're different from all other religious organisations. He said, because all other religious organisations, he said, there's a distinction between the priesthood and the laity, the pastor and the congregation. But your guru, your Swami, he wanted you all to become priests. He wanted you all to become pastors. He wanted you all to become preachers. That's my understanding. And we had to nod our head. We said, yes, that's true. So, normally, I've spoken to many priests in my time. Catholic priests, you train for 7 years. 7 years to be a priest. You want to be a pastor of a Protestant church, easily 4 years at Bible college, so that you know your stuff. In ISKCON, you can train in 2-3 years. Yeah. But it's a lifetime learning everything that you need to learn. But we can be trained in the basic philosophy, and then we expect you to share it with others. So the state of ISKCON as an organization and the community development as a growth of spiritually minded people rests on 2 important points. One is to love the Bhagavatam and the content of the Bhagavatam, and the other is to share it. So the first thing I thought I'd do is go dive deep at the beginning of the book and say, what is the Bhagavatam all about? And a Vedic text says that you can estimate what a book is about if you read the beginning, the end, and see what's repeated throughout the pages. And then you'll be able to make a conclusion as to what the book is about. So often in a Vedic text, any scripture says, this book is about this. Just like in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, the very beginning of the book says, now let's talk about yoga. That's how it begins. The Vedanta Sutra was the beginning of the Vedanta Sutra. Now is the time for self-realization. Okay. Let's talk about self-realization. So the Bhagavatam says the following. Anybody like to venture this verse? Who knows this one? I'd like to recite it. Yes, it's not me doing everything for you.
I don't know the meter.
Dharma projita kaita votra paramonirat saranam sadam Vedam vastavam astru atra vastru shivadam tapatrayam munanam Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Krite Kimva Parayarishvara Sadyo Hridya Varudyate Trakritivi Sushrushibis Tatshana. And the meaning is, someone read that out for me, please. My voice is not so good.
Completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated, this Bhagavat Purana propounds the highest truth, which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart. The highest truth is reality, distinguished from illusion, for the welfare of all. Such truth uproots the threefold miseries.
Yeah. These days, in order to be popular, in order to be accepted, we very readily say to members of different religious persuasions, yes, your scripture is bhakti, you're about bhakti, you're performing bhakti. It's all in a different name. And we should be careful, I think, because while that may be a good messaging strategy, the Bhagavatam explains in the very beginning, Dharma Projita Kaitara, that this book is about nothing to do with karma or jnana. There's two responses to the world. One is that I will try to enjoy the world. Some people try to enjoy the world now. We call that more on the animalistic spectrum. The animalistic spectrum is, I see it, I want it, I must have it, I'm going to have it now. The less animalistic spectrum for karma is, I see it, I want it, I may have to work hard to save up to get it. The more refined animalistic spectrum is, I see it, I want it, but I know it ain't good for me. So I'm going to go for something higher, and in my next life, I'm going to really enjoy it. That's the top of jnana, top of karma. Jnana means, I've had enough. I've just had enough. This is jnana. Putting it down. I've had enough now. I want something more in my life. I want to escape this world. I want to be part of the great spiritual platform, the great Brahman. So whether you're trying to enjoy this world, or whether you're trying to give it up, the basic lesson is that you'll never be happy until you come to the platform of understanding that nothing belongs to you, so you can't enjoy it. Nothing belongs to you, so you can't give it up. Yeah. Either you're trying to enjoy it, or you're trying to give it up. But the root conception is, it belongs to me. I can enjoy it because it's mine to enjoy. I can give it up because it's mine to renounce. No, neither of those are correct. So bhakti begins at the point where none of those is true. Simply everything belongs to Ishvara. Ishvara. Ishvara is a generic term. We find Om Purnamada Purnamidam. Everything comes from him, at Purnam, at one source. And what's the next verse? Ishavasya. Ishavasya means that which is the controller. Vasya is pervading everything. So that's the one thing I can say. I may not be able to say that, he plays a flute. I may not be able to say that he stands by the side of Radha. But one thing I can say is that I don't know who God is, what God is, male, female, I have no idea at all. But God is that which controls everything. Because I'm sure it isn't me. So at the very beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, the very beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, we have this announcement by the person who's written it, saying, I'm rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated. So in trying to analyze a religion, you must... What's the motivation here? What is the motivation? It's very interesting that as a community, there was very, very little motivation for people to come to Krishna consciousness, come to bhakti in the early days. The food wasn't great, there was nowhere to stay, there was no positions, there was nothing to enjoy. Haribol. But as time went by, as you become successful, as the money flows, there are positions and there's power. So it attracts different types of devotees who may be interested in power and position. That's always something to be wary of, because just if you're interested in power and position in a religious organization, you should know for certain that in the rough and tumble of life and all the lessons that God is trying to teach you, that power and position will be taken away from you, either nicely, very delicately, as the Band-Aid is taken off, inch by inch, or in one big go. Because we're here to learn lessons. And being in a religious organization is, nothing is permanent. Nothing is permanent. Okay. Any other comments? Any other words? Anything strike you as being something different than you've read before? Okay, so that's what the Bhagavatam is. This is the second half of the translation. So this beautiful Bhagavatam, Govinda, do you want to read this one?
This beautiful Bhagavatam, compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva in his maturity, is sufficient in itself for God realization. What is the need of any other scripture? As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam, by this culture of knowledge, the Supreme Lord is established within his heart.
Govinda, you've got a great voice. You should just narrate the entire Srimad Bhagavatam, all 18,000 verses of it, Put a little bit of music under it. You've got a good seller there. I don't think it's been done with a voice like that. So, compiled by Vyasadeva. Why you know the story? Because his guru told him there's something that you haven't done, something that you need to achieve. It is sufficient in itself for God realization. You don't need to go to anything else. You don't have to read the Tibetan Book of the Dead and the Srimad Bhagavatam at the same time. Do the I Ching, read any of the books. If you attentively and submissively hear the message of the Bhagavatam, the Supreme Lord is established in your heart. Good. Then we go to 3:25:25. Anybody know this one? You know this one? Yeah. Do you want to read it in?
Yeah. Satam prasannam mama virya samvido bhavanti hitkarna rasayana katha tajoshanada svabhavarga vartmani shadharati bhaktiranu.
Namras, you know that one. So would you say that's an important verse to learn? Why would you say it's an important verse to learn? Maybe the translation will help.
It shows like the process of how to hear and what happens when you hear nicely.
Yeah. Let's read the English out. Govinda, you want to read the English again?
In the association of pure devotees, discussion of the pastimes and activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is very pleasing and satisfying to the ear and the heart. By cultivating such knowledge, one gradually becomes advanced on the path of liberation, and thereafter he is free, and his attraction becomes fixed. Then real devotion and devotional service begins.
Yeah. We hear the story in the beginning of the Bhagavatam, how Narada Muni, the very guru of the person who wrote the Bhagavatam, became such after he was in the company of sages during the Chaturmasya period. Sannyasis traditionally travel, but when it's rainy in India, they can't travel so well, otherwise they get sick. Why? Because sannyasis are traditionally old men. So you don't have old men out in the rain, especially when they don't carry an umbrella. Why don't sannyasis carry an umbrella? They don't carry anything. They don't carry much at all. So the possessions that a sannyasi has, he gives up. That's what sannyas means, putting it all down. Sannyas, I'm putting it all down. So you don't
put it all down and then pick up an umbrella and a nice pair of shoes and a medical bag and a wheelchair, So they gather together and they sit together and they do this. They talk about spirituality. So Narada Muni, when he was a young boy, came into that company. And once he took prasadam by their permission. He took a small quantity of prasadam. So two things we hear. He was in their company for hearing and in their company for eating. These are the two things that are the basic exchanges that happen in a group of devotees. As Prabhupada said, they hear, they sing, they chant, they discuss, then they eat, they rest, and they begin it all again. There's a very nice story from South India. At that time in South India, about the year sort of 800 AD, there was traveling minstrels who used to go all over India singing praises of Vishnu. They'd have the different musical instruments. They were known as the Alwars, great saints. They were in the line of Ramanujacharya. But at the one time in history, there was three of them existing at the same time, walking all around the south of India and singing and traveling and telling stories. So it just so happened that one rainy night, one of the Alwars was looking for shelter, and he came to a porch of a temple, and he went inside, and he was going to make it his place for the night. So he lay down and made a pillow from his hands, and the lightning and the thunder was going. Haribo Yaranath. And he was just dozing off to sleep when he felt the presence of another. And he looked up, and lo and behold, there was another Alwar standing in the porch. And it just so happened that all three musical devotees, they all happened to come together at the same time. So the second one came and said, "Is there enough place for me?" He said, "I'm also in need of shelter." He said, "Yes." He said, there's room here for one person to lie down, but there's room for two people to sit. So please come in. So he got up, sat. They're both dozing off. They felt the presence of another. He said, "Is there a little bit of room for me also?" He said, "Yes, there's presence for you. There's enough for two to sit down, but enough for three to stand up." So they started talking about the Lord. And then all three of them had this understanding, this impression that there was a fourth coming. And they looked around, they couldn't see anyone. Couldn't see. But they felt the presence that another person was standing there. And there was a flash of lightning. And they saw the Lord himself was there with them. They'd been talking about him and now he appeared. So this is the potency of discussing Krishna. That Krishna is in his name and Krishna is in his discussions. When we say kirtan, we normally mean kirtan, singing. We think we know what we mean by kirtan. Kirtan also means to describe, and it also means to tell the stories from the Bhagavatam to someone else. I recently completed reading the Bhagavatam it was reading the Krishna book, and it took about 2.5, 3 years. Every Monday night we were doing it. And I said to people, these stories you should try to remember, because the idea of being a devotee of Krishna is that you tell these stories. Now, how many of you have heard some of these stories before, like Govardhan and Kaliya Krishna and Agasura? Okay, I asked them, but I'm asking you as well. And of course, they all said, yes, we've heard them before. I said, but how many of you think that it improved on a second or third telling? And they all said, yes. Because these stories are called Nava Nava Rasa Katha. They're ever fresh, ever new. And it doesn't really make sense. It really doesn't make sense, in any other way. okay, there was a boy called Krishna and he lifted up the hill because it was raining and everyone got underneath, and that's the end of the story, the end. And then you hear the story again and it still gives you pleasure. How is that possible? Because it's a story pertaining to Krishna. And Krishna's happy when you tell that story. And then Krishna reveals in your heart his presence, just like he did to the Alwars. So recently I was giving a talk and I was pleading with people. I said, please don't take your spiritual experiences and label them as psychological phenomena. Sometimes, yes, we have to tell devotees to be restrained because sometimes psychological phenomena get interpreted as spiritual experiences, we know that. But if you give too many warnings about that, sometimes devotees have genuinely spiritual experiences, and I think it's just my mind. One young man came to me, he said, I think I'm not going to be a devotee for any longer. I said, why? He said, because I've analyzed that in the beginning when I came to Krishna consciousness, it wasn't real, I wasn't tasting anything, I wasn't experiencing anything. I said, you didn't have pleasure in kirtan or classes or company of devotees? He said, yes, I did. But now I know that it was just psychological phenomena. See? He'd already labeled it as part of his history. And because when you come back into bodily consciousness, you talk about, mental growth, and you talk about physical growth, and you talk about the changing seasons of your life. So he was a middle-aged devotee looking back on himself as a young devotee and attributing all the joy that he'd experienced as being mere psychological phenomena at a time when I really needed that in my life. Okay. Now, I said, now you don't need it. So he was trying to grapple with this. I said, please don't subjugate your genuine spiritual experiences to psychological analysis, because Krishna may just have really revealed something to you as a special, It will be like Dhruva Maharaj. Dhruva Maharaj gets a vision of Prishnigarbha, then Dhruva Maharaj gets middle-aged and he thinks, yeah, I must have dreamed it, I was just a kid. I was only 6, 8 years old, I was in the forest, I got scared, I needed the presence of God, and I dreamed the whole thing. See? So that would not be good. So I'm saying the way that you become a devotee is to have a genuine spiritual experience. It's not just philosophy. Philosophy is great. Logical analysis and everything is great. But unless you have a genuine spiritual experience, A, you don't get as far as you do in the beginning years. Secondly, if you don't have continuing spiritual experiences, you can't stay. I'm convinced of that. Whatever it may be. I'm not saying we all have to have visions and dreams, but you have to experience what is being described here. And I think we do, and I think we forget. Maya makes us forget. Sometimes we're not so charitable to each other. Devotee tells another devotee, I felt something. And the other devotee says, yeah, it's just your mind, Prabhu. It's just your mind. And immediately quashes the genuine revelation from Krishna that entered into the heart. You see where I'm going with this? Okay. Anyone like to reverberate this? Yes, sir.
Hare Krishna. When you were talking about the devotee...
Oh, it's a question. Okay, go.
It was more of a comment. But,
okay, yeah, please comment, yeah.
So when you mentioned the devotee who said that they weren't sure they could believe much longer because they were examining their feelings, like the first thing that came into my mind was like the end of Sri Shikshastakam, verse 2, where Mahaprabhu says, you allow us to so easily approach us with your names, but I'm so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them.
Yeah.
I think it's part of the process that we kind of examine ourselves, say, well, we should be, feeling something more because this is so extraordinary.
Yeah, yeah. It's, speaking as Johnny Harrison's father, for a moment, yes, she just released a song called Feel. It's about the idea of, loneliness and longing in spiritual life. Prabhupada said that the importance of having a guru is it is like this. Sometimes, I'll demonstrate with at the edge of my dhoti, is that sometimes in Vrindavan there's a man who makes lotus, and sometimes lotus can be made by machine and sometimes you make them by hand. But if you make a lotus by hand, you take a sheet of metal and you make a fist inside, and then you tap, tap, tap with the hammer. And with each tap, what you're doing is shaping the lota around your hand. So this hand has to be inside, because if you tap and there's no hand inside, there will be no shape. If you hold your hand inside and you don't tap, there'll be no shape. So the guru, sometimes he has to tap you and sometimes he has to support you. So the tapping is the gradual correction, course correction, and the support inside is the encouragement. As Prabhupada says, Prabhupada would always say things like, what is the difficulty? Very quickly you will attain Krishna consciousness. I see that you're experiencing transcendental ecstasy. In other words, it was, wow, yeah, he told me I'm a great devotee. And then the next minute it would be, why are you such a nonsense? You know nothing. So the tap and the support. So both need to be there. And Prabhupada gave another example. He said that if the ship is going across the ocean, he said you have to, the captain has to make sure that the ship doesn't go 1 degree out of line. He said because then instead of going to New York, he'll be in Newfoundland in Canada or something. So in the same way, the Guru brings you back to that true sense of direction. And it may be by course correction this way or this way. Most of the time, we fly in our spiritual life like an airplane. And an airplane is always zigzagging. Airplanes don't go straight. They go zig and a zag and a zig and a zag. And the zig and a zag is the course correction. So it happens with us all the time. So the course correction can happen through something you read in Shastra. You open a book, and immediately what you read in the book will be something that you need to read. Isn't it? You open a book or you have a conversation with someone and they say something and you go, wow, where did you hear that from? Oh, such and such said it in a class. It's just what I needed to hear today. So then you get the feeling that Krishna is looking after you. Okay? But you can magnify that feeling by surrounding yourself with devotees who make helpful suggestions and say, helpful things. This is our course correction. Zig and zag in spiritual life. Don't forget the zig and don't forget the zag. So what does this one say? This one's pretty much the same. Persons who hear Srimad Bhagavatam regularly and are always taking the matter very seriously. 2 qualifications. Hear regularly, okay, and take it seriously. In other words, when you open up the book, Prabhupada says, when you open up the book, you're opening up a scene in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And you can enter into the pages of that scene like a play. Have you ever had the feeling in a play when you, at the theatre, or I guess at the movies, it all opens up and there's the music and immediately you start experiencing the emotions, you're identifying with one of the characters, and you forget that you're in the theatre. Because the theatre, through the creation of the artistic impressions, you have lost your sense of being an observer, but you're now a participant. That's the whole idea. So in the Bhagavatam, I always remember that at the end of the week, we had 2 hours to rehearse and prepare a short play. I didn't know what the word skit was until I joined ISKCON. They said, we're going to do a skit. I said, what's a skit? They said, well, it's a play. I said, why don't you say play then? Why do you say play? So we had 2 hours to rehearse. 2 hours and a box of, usually a stick and a turban and a few saris and a few bits of cloth. These are the brahmacharis. Okay. So we would come back off traveling Sankirtan, 2 hours to do a play. We had to work out the dialogue, you had to work out the story, you had to work out the action sequences, the fight scenes. Okay, there was always a fight scene. Why? You have to have a fight scene. Either a fight scene or a chase scene. And then you could have some sound effects and music and special effects. Anyway, that gradually over the years grew into the Bhaktivedanta players. But you had to learn the story, learn the dialogue, perform it in front of people, so you had to remember it. And by doing so, you inculcated certain feelings within yourself, because you're playing a character. So you had to put yourself in the space of the character, the psychic space of the character. Then you had to portray those emotions to the audience. You had to make it humorous enough that the audience would be taken with you, but not humorous enough that you lost the seriousness of the story. And it was a great way of learning the Bhagavatam, and to some hilarious effects as well. Bhaktivedanta Manor is an old Victorian building. We have old mock Tudor windows, and we have big fireplaces. And we were putting on the story of Daksha, Daksha and Virabhadra, Shiva, like that, Parvati or Sati. Anyway, at this point is that, Shiva takes a hair from his head and he throws it on the ground, and these demons come and they assault Daksha. Anyway, so I didn't know what was going on. I was just sitting there as an audience member on this one. Usually we were performing them. This one was a slightly bigger and more elaborate one in the prasadam room, about this size. And then I think someone had some music, and it was... favourite go-to music was the Planet Suite. Planet Suite by Gustav Holst. Music goes like this. Anyway, the music was dun 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 bom 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 dun 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 bom bom bom. And as I looked, there was a chill went through the audience, and I looked behind me, and there was a demon in slow motion climbing in the window, painted completely green. And a tingle went up my spine. And another one came in from a side entrance. Bom, bom, bom. And these were people, we were brahmacharis, we'd had no entertainment for about 6 years, okay? We did not listen to music, we didn't watch TV, there was nothing. So this was like, our minds were just like, we were in the Bhagavatam. So then, to this side of me, there was a big fireplace. And then a demon came out of the fireplace. He'd been hiding there since the beginning of the show. God. Anyway, so we need to bring it to life. So the idea is we enter into the Bhagavatam, and then the Bhagavatam will enter into us. And in this verse here, we say that people who do this will have the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna manifested in their hearts within a short time. In the Sanskrit to this verse, ati dirghena means a long time. Na ati dirghena means not a very long time. And Prabhupada has translated this in a short time. Okay? It's a little bit more inspiring. If I say, you'll become Krishna conscious, not a very long time. If I say, you'll become Krishna conscious in a short time, which is more encouraging of the two. It's the second one, isn't it? So Prabhupada helps us with this. But it means not a very long time. Now, someone will look at me reading Srimad Bhagavatam for 50 years. Well, has Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, manifested in your heart? I would say, yes. I would say, on a good day, yes. Pravishta karana randrena, this is how it happens. Swanam bhava saroruham. Remember this word, saroruham, means the heart. Dunoti shamalam Krishna, salilasya yata sharat. Are we okay? We doing okay with this level? And Mother Guru.
The sound incarnation of Lord Krishna, the Supreme Soul, Srimad Bhagavatam, enters into the heart of a self-realized devotee, sits on the lotus flower of his loving relationship, and thus cleanses the dust of material association, such as lust, anger, and hankering. Thus it acts like autumnal rains upon pools of muddy water.
Yeah, this confused me when I first read it. What does it mean? The lotus flower of your loving relationship. What does that mean? Ekanti Bhakti, Yadanath. You're allowed to discuss between you. Your time is up. What is a lotus flower of a loving relationship? What does that mean?
Loving relationship, the essence of the relationship, the core of it, the beauty of it.
Yeah. I'm a very visual person. So I picture the Paramatma standing on the lotus flower already. So what does that mean? He's already standing on a lotus flower. Is this a different lotus flower? Are there two lotus flowers? One, the one he stands on. Does he get off that one to stand on the other one, which is the loving relationship? Sort of a do-si-do maneuver. What do you think? It creates an image, doesn't it, this verse? Creates an image. But I think Yadanath is right. That the loving relationship with Krishna is itself is being described as a lotus. My impression, as yours was, is that it is a blooming lotus. And the Lord comes and sits on that lotus and enlivens that lotus. And your loving relationship with Him increases. Is that all right? This word, Hrit Saroruham. Hrit means the heart. Saroruham. Heart like a lotus flower. The Sanskrit translation of this is the pith. The pith, the inner part, the center. But it's also used in Lord Nrsingadev's ripping out the heart of Hiranyakashipu in the 7th canto, 8th chapter. That's why I made this note. Hiranyakashipu's heart is also known as a Saroruham. Hrit Saroruham. So he has a heart and the Lord rips it out. Which is not a very nice way of... I mean, that's quite final, isn't it? I think you find that's quite a final declaration that you don't have a loving relationship. What's going on? I'm open to any contributions. I was trying to think of this word, Saroruham. In the South Indian tradition, the Sri Vaishnava tradition, they say, it's interesting, the Lord Nrsingadev, before he rips out the heart of Hiranyakashipu, he takes his right hand, he puts it over the heart of Hiranyakashipu to feel if there is any love, any scrap of goodness, any scrap of virtue. And when he feels nothing, and only when he feels nothing, which is in just a fraction of a second, then he says, all right. Then the next hand comes and then bifurcates him. It's a tradition. Not from the Bhagavatam. So we'll move on. So the next set of images is King Nimi, as you know, in the 11th canto. He's doing a yagya, preparing to do a yagya. And these 9 naked yogis appear. They're traveling everywhere together. And they start to give him instructions. One is called Prabuddha, another one is called Karabhajana, And these dialogues between Nimi and the 9 great sages, the 9 yogis, perfected yogis, who travel everywhere just sharing knowledge of the Bhagavatam, the relationship of the living entity to the Supreme. These form a good part of the 11th canto. The 11th canto is actually a Bible to the people of Maharashtra in India. There's a long tradition of using the 11th canto because there's so many good instructions there as a complete book in itself. It also contains the Uddhava Gita. The Uddhava Gita is 1200 verses. The Bhagavad Gita is 700 verses. So they use the Bhagavad Gita as an extra Gita. So I think it's very nice. So this first verse, 37, in the 2nd chapter, describes the position of the living entity, absorbed in the illusory energy. Therefore, any one of you, Dharmaraj, would you like to? Oh, you've got a good voice, that's it.
Therefore, an intelligent person should engage unflinchingly in the unalloyed devotional service of the Lord, under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master, whom he should accept as his worshipful deity and as his very life and soul.
Very good. Thank you. So we have these two. Of course, that's always a very interesting. Was it Boston, where the devotees got a Sankirtan bus? Prabhupada happened to be came on the Sankirtan bus to look around. He said, "Let us go for a ride." You know the story? And they put a chair in the middle of the Sankirtan bus, and the devotees just hanging on to the chair that Prabhupada was sitting on. Prabhupada started telling them, "Go left, go right, now go down, no, second on the left." Where's Prabhupada taking us? He took them to the dock, and he pointed to the sign that said, unalloyed. Or alloyed steel, was it alloyed steel or unalloyed steel? Anyway, he said, unalloyed. He said, "This is the first sign that I saw when coming to your country, unalloyed." And I realized it was Krishna giving me a sign that I should be unalloyed in my service to him. Now it's interesting, it's in the 11th canto where we have a dialogue with Uddhava. And Uddhava wants directions as to how you can find such a spiritual master like this. So Krishna first of all says, in the beginning he says, your own mind is the guru. Because your own mind will discriminate. I am suffering. This material world is made in such a way to perpetuate my suffering. I need to move on. I need to find an alternative source of happiness, because the happiness I get is temporary. Then Krishna says, the second stage of finding a guru, well, let me tell you a story. So then he tells the story of the young man with the 24 gurus. He indicates that the entire universe will begin to show you signs to lead you along the way. And then Krishna talks about finding the embodiment of all those 24 universal gurus in the form of the guru. But here, as a preparation for this, we find from this conversation, what else do you have to do? Well, you have a guru and Dharmaraj this time.
Therefore, an intelligent person should control the mind, restricting it from the illusion of seeing things separate from Krishna. And when the mind is thus controlled, he will experience actual fearlessness.
Yeah. What's the time, by the way?
11:38.
Is that all? Okay. How long have I been speaking? Too long.
About an hour.
Get off. Okay. So listen to this. This is 39. Now, Janitai, would you read this one, because this is, you can stand up to read this one and start waving your arms around.
An intelligent person who has controlled his mind and conquered fear should give up all attachment to material objects such as wife. See you later. See you later. And nation. I'm going back to England. and should wander freely without embarrassment, hearing and chanting the holy names of the Lord, the bearer of the chariot wheel.
Yeah. How many of you who are married or who hope to be married have the fear of God struck in your heart when you read verses like this? I must admit, these were the verses I loved as a brahmachari. Well, since I got married. But then I heard Prabhupada explain something. He said, not that you have to give up your wife and family, but you have to become detached within. He said, it is like a coconut. He said, a coconut falls from the tree, and the sunshine dries up the coconut. When the coconut falls from the tree, if you pick it up and shake it, you cannot hear anything. When the sun has dried the coconut for some time, you pick up the coconut and you can hear it rattle. This means the inside of the coconut has become detached within the coconut. Okay. So detachment is something that happens within. The coconut doesn't look any different. It looks the same. But if you pick it up and rattle it, then you know something has taken place. So gradually detachment comes. I just thought I might say something reassuring. But when a person abandons this, as many devotees do actually, many devotees pretty much gave up the world and came and gave up their families and their nations to become followers of Prabhupada. It's quite amazing that the cut was quite quick. And we did wander freely without embarrassment, hearing and chanting the holy names of the Lord. That's how this movement was born. Very interesting. One of the most distinct impressions made upon me was someone came to me one day while Prabhupada was visiting in England, and they said, Prabhupada wants to speak to the traveling Sankirtan devotees. I said, well, that's me. Prabhupada wants to speak to me. So there was about 15 of us. We were invited to come upstairs to Prabhupada's room. And I'm being a little bit pushy. You know, Prabhupada's desk was there, and I sat right up close to the desk, just looking, because you didn't often get a time to be so close to Prabhupada. So Prabhupada, he opened up by looking at everyone directly in the face, and he said, thank you. Thank you for helping me spread this movement. Because Prabhupada knew that we were traveling and distributing the Bhagavatam and doing Harinams and everything. I was immediately struck by his sense of gratitude to whatever small things we were able to do for him. And I was thinking that surely the disciple has to be in a permanent sense of gratitude to the Guru. But the Guru here was expressing his gratitude to us for having done the things that he could not do himself. Now, of course, Prabhupada could have physically gone to every town and village in England, but the fact that we were doing it for him was greatly helpful to him. So I'd tell you that. Then what happens? The holy names of Krishna are all auspicious because they describe his transcendental birth and activities which he performs within this world for the salvation of the conditioned souls. Thus, the holy names of the Lord are sung throughout the world. Everybody agree? I hope so. So when you have a holy name of Krishna, Krishna means what? All attractive. Yashodanandana means what? Nandanandana, Kamsa Nishudana, Killer Kamsa, Kaliya Damoda Vidhana, yeah. Rasa Rasika, all these names, yeah, all these names of Krishna are names given to him by his devotees due to activities that he performs with those devotees. So they should immediately remind you of this story. When Prabhupada sat and chanted Jai Radha Madhava, one time he commented, he said, all of Vrindavan is there. All of Vrindavan is there. It immediately recreates a visualization of Vrindavan, which then you can enter into if you're sufficiently enthusiastic. Just like Kamala Harris. My texts have gone. I can't speak now. Okay. Now I can speak. Sorry, I know New York is a Democrat state, but who would like to read this one? Govind, one of the ladies here. Anasuya. Can you speak like Govinda now? You've been here in America for 3 years. Why are you speaking in a New York accent? Come on.
By chanting the holy name of the Supreme Lord, one comes to the stage of love of Godhead. Then the devotee is fixed in his vow as an eternal servant of the Lord, and he gradually becomes very much attached to a particular name and form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Isn't that wonderful? Thank you for that. By chanting, you come to the stage of love. You then become fixed in your vow as a servant and become very attached. This is echoing the 9 stages of developing love of God, isn't it? As his heart melts with ecstatic love, he laughs very loudly, or cries, or shouts. You had enough? Any of these symptoms? All of them.
You can stand up and display them.
Do you sometimes laugh very loudly?
I sometimes do, yes.
Janatai, do you cry or shout?
All the time.
Bhava Bhakti, does he shout sometimes?
Yes.
Wave your hands at me if you have sometimes sung or danced like a madman. Interesting, isn't it? Interesting. No, I'm saying that in all seriousness because sometimes it's you just feel that you want to dance. You feel that you want to dance. There's a policeman, a New York policeman came up to Prabhupada and he'd observed something about Prabhupada and he said, "Excuse me, sir, do you know that you're glowing?" And the airline pilot came up to Prabhupada and he said, "So your followers are very happy, they're very bright-faced." Prabhupada really took that as a compliment. Yeah. So sometimes we may think, especially if you're British, which I know you're not, but if you're British, losing your composure is the last thing you want to do. I mean, if you're British and you lose your composure, that's it, you've lost your caste. You know, us Brits, we like to, we have a force 10 hurricane, and the British man will look up in the sky and say, "Spot of rain." We're completely losing our composure. But this is something that comes as a result. And I would like to say that when you sing and dance like a madman, you can similarly influence others, as Prabhupada said. First they will think that you're crazy. Then they will say, "Oh, let me do this crazy thing also." Different stages. But I have seen some really miserable Hari parties. Oh my gosh. And I look at them and I think, if I didn't already know what I know now, I would never join that movement. See, when I first came to the temple, the devotees were telling me, "Chant Hare Krishna and be happy." So I was looking in the morning meditation session, I was thinking, who's happy? Some devotees, they look very blissful, and I thought, there's something going on there. I will have something of that. I'll speak to that person. But the others, they looked as if they were in pain. One person I remember was like this.
His teeth were just... He's a vegetarian, dull with food. Another person looked as if he wasn't interested at all. He was like this. Although I did think he was, experiencing the heights of meditation, into a higher state of meditation. But at the same time as these symptoms arise, and they do arise, there's something else that rises in the heart, and that's called compassion. Compassion. This doesn't result in you becoming a self-centered enjoyer of spirituality. This results in you wanting to share what you have with others, in the knowledge that if you do, you won't lose it. And if I have 5 bananas, and I give 5 of you 1 banana each, I will have no bananas. But if I sing and dance like a madman, and I help you to sing and dance like mad people, I won't be any less, I'll be more. So why should I help you? Because I feel that I can, and because I feel that you need it, and because I would like to see you happy. So this is the thought of a devotee. So compassion rises in the heart of a devotee. Respect and humility rises in the heart of a devotee, at the same time as being drowned in these spiritual symptoms. That's why those who do sing and dance like madmen, they simultaneously want to travel everywhere and give it to others. And we're going to see in one of the final verses where Prahlad Maharaj says, yes, there are some who practice spiritual life and enjoy their own private ecstasies without sharing it with anybody else, but that's not me. And here it is. These are just extracts from Prahlad's speaking to Lord Nrsimhadev. He says, now kindly look upon us. Someone is suffering in the material world. Not only upon me, but also upon all others who are suffering. And by your causeless mercy and compassion, deliver us and maintain us. So, as the compassion rises in your heart, your understanding, your empathy of the suffering of others also rises in the heart. All these things. Why? Because Gautama Rishi said that the qualities of the soul, there's 8 qualities of the soul that he says that these qualities of empathy and compassion are intrinsic to the nature of the soul. So as you lose your bodily identity, the qualities of the soul become manifest. Not only the bliss, but also the empathy and the compassion. And that's how it should be. That's how you know that you're dealing with a devotee who's experiencing something. So Prahlad says this to Lord Nrsimhadev. And if we're not careful, verse number 42, we could make us feel that Prahlad, although he's just a young boy, has already learned the art of dissing everyone in the world, saying that they're all fools and rascals. But if you look at what he's saying, and remember that Prahlad Maharaj, he's now been touched by the hand of the Lord, which, when Prabhupada writes about Dhruva being touched by, was it the Lord's hand or the conch? Conch. Dhruva is immediately able to recite prayers that go way above his age range. You don't expect a 5-year-old boy to be able to string words together like this, but when the Lord touches you with his hand, you become free from the conditioning of a 5-year-old boy. So similarly, Prahlad Maharaj, it's almost like Krishna's putting prayers in his mouth and they're coming out direct to Krishna. That's the way Krishna works. So here, Prahlad is speaking as if he's really worldly wise. The first section of this says, what's the difficulty for you in delivering the fallen souls engaged in your devotional service? You are the friend of all suffering humanity, and for great personalities it's necessary to show mercy to the foolish.
When I read this, I thought, this is very much like another Sri Vaishnava collection of verses which Prabhupada liked. It is by Yamunacharya. Yamunacharya composed something called Stocharatna. And there's another king, King Kulashekar. Prabhupada liked these verses. Anyway, one of those verses by Yamuna or Kulashekar, I forget. He says, my Lord, you need me. He's praying to Krishna. He says, my Lord, you need me. He said, because your name is the most merciful. You're the most merciful to even the most fallen. So because I am the most fallen, you need me to make sure your reputation is intact. Without me, my Lord, you can't be the most merciful. Unless you're merciful to me, you can't be the most merciful. So, my Lord, I need you, and you know that. But you also need me to keep your reputation as the most merciful. I thought that was very clever. So Prahlad Maharaj here is saying, you can easily do this. You can easily do this. And therefore, I think that you will show your mercy to persons like us who engage in your service. We are devotees, we're trying. We're trying. And this is a very good prayer for us as well, isn't it? My dear Lord, you know what I'm going through. You don't even need me to tell you. But I'm going to tell you anyway. Because by me hearing myself pray, that's going to be good for me. You know what I'm going through. You know it's not been easy for me these past few weeks. Let me tell you what happened these past few weeks. And you can talk to Krishna like a friend. Why not? He is your dearmost friend, so why not talk to him as a friend? Could you just find your way to just doing this for me? And grace, mercy, really means that the Lord can find a way through it that may not ordinarily be a product of your karma or your destiny or the arrangements of the world around you. Sometimes amazing things can happen. Amazing things can happen. There was a devotee, and he had a ringtone on his phone. Namaste, namaste, because he was in the police service in Bombay, and there was a terrorist attack going on in Bombay, and he got stuck in a shopping centre, and the terrorists were wandering around the shopping centre with machine guns. You can take one from the back, right back. That's it. Come on, I got my social media impressions today. So he got stuck behind a pillar, okay, and he heard the machine gun fire going off. And then his phone rang, simultaneously alerting the terrorist to where he would be, but simultaneously telling him that it would be all right. What was his ringtone? Hiding behind the pillar, machine gun going off in the distance. Namaste, namaste. So then he felt simultaneously, oh, the phone's gone off, he's going to hear it, but reassured. So there are many, many ways. I think, and Prabhupada said, if you ever say the word I think, you should go and hide in a cupboard. You should finish the sentence in a cupboard. My understanding is that in very, very small ways, to the alert devotee, Krishna shows signs that he's helping. Unless that is there, I don't think we can go on. We can't go on. Ekakiya Mara, how can I go on with this Harinam Sankirtan unless you help? But the way in which Krishna helps is also not just the mystical, not just the rainbow in the sky, just the right time, not just the phone going off at just the most dangerous moment, but it's of the devotees. Krishna manifests himself in our life through the agency of his devotees, who sometimes, just like Prahlad Maharaj, say something, not because they really wanted to say it, but Krishna made them say it at that particular point for you. And when three Brahmins, Prabhupada said, when three Brahmins say the same thing to you, you should know that that's the Lord speaking to you. One time His Holiness Sri Ram Swami came to me and he said, I had a dream. Prabhupada came to me in the dream. I said, what did he say? He said, he came in my dream with a message for you. I said, okay, what did he say? Prabhupada says you should chant more. He said, but next time, can you make arrangements that Prabhupada comes in your dream, not mine? I said, I need to get a good night's sleep. So that is another reason why we connect ourselves to Krishna through the association of devotees. Very important. And that is why rule numero uno is that don't disconnect yourself from the devotees. And that's difficult, because I like some devotees and I don't like the others, right? Don't you find that sometimes? Well, I'll associate with him, and him, and him, and maybe her, but not him, please, Krishna. Your voice cannot possibly come to me through him. He's a jerk. Really. He doesn't know the first thing. And yet, sometimes the person that you don't like, who doesn't say complimentary things to you, is just the person that you need to listen to hear the uncomplimentary, unsavory things that you need to hear about yourself. So take the rough with the smooth. If they all praise you, if all the devotees in your life praise you and think you're wonderful, look for someone who doesn't like you very much. They may tell you some home truths. I'm living proof. I've received a lot of untruth criticism in my time. We're getting towards the end. Huh? Sorry?
You have another half hour.
I've got another half hour, but they're bored already. I've told enough stories. I see them going on. So, here, the specific words that Prahlad Maharaj says, Vimukta Cetasa, fools and rascals who have bereft of Krishna consciousness. Have you ever been called a fool by anybody? Put your hand up if anybody's ever called you a fool. Is it nice or not nice? This is an old English word. I don't think they accepted it. So there's a rapper called Dizzy Rascal, so or Little Rascal. But rascal is actually, in the time of Shakespeare, someone who was a rascal, especially a naughty rascal, was someone who was about to be hanged. So a rascal was real, it was a real bad thing. You could be hung by the neck on a rope if you're a rascal. Now it's just, you see a kid and you go, oh, you little rascal. So words change. So for Prabhupada, rascal meant something serious. And this other word here, varam, means a weight. False burden or responsibility of maintaining one's family, society, nation, and elaborate arrangements for that purpose. So udvahata, who are lifting, vimudha. Again we come to this word. Mudha actually means a donkey. Foolish. Because he's carrying a heavy burden, as Prabhupada said, only to be kicked by the she-ass at night. So vara means a weight, a pressure, a load, a burden. And vimudha means stupid, ignorant, or dull. Now, how old was Prahlad? 7, 5. To come out with these words is, you think, oh, he's a child genius or something. But by the Lord's arrangement, he's making these sounds and he's condemning those around. Now, here's the difficulty for us. We live in a democratic nation in which everyone has equal opportunity. We're meant to treat everybody equally. The caste system is gone. And Prabhupada says things like, he is first-class man. He's second-class man. He's 10th-class man. What do you do with those statements? How do you personally process those statements? I was on a train station platform in Mathura and one of the, the luggage wallahs had come up, and he'd already, I turned around and he'd already got the suitcase on his head. And he'd already had the suitcase on his head. And then he started haggling. And it was at my end of my stay in India. And I didn't have much money, and I really didn't feel like haggling. So I snapped. Usually 3 days before I leave India, after a month in India, I snap at someone. You ever have that experience? You're sweet as pie for about 3.5 weeks. And then it just gets to you. The beggars and the hassling. Prabhu, what is your country? One time I was in India and then I was at the Delhi temple. Maybe I shouldn't say which temple I was, but I already had. I went into the Brahmachari ashram. Because every time they come up to you in India, they go, Prabhu, what is your name? What is your country? And they always ask, devotees always ask, Prabhu, who's your guru? Isn't it? They always say, who is your guru? I want to know if I can like you or not. If I like your guru, I'll get on well with you. If I don't like your guru, then, talk to the hand. So he said, who's your guru? I said, oh, Hansa Duta is my guru. He just went like this. And I said, God bless Hansa Duta. So then he said, and then I said, oh, then I was reinitiated by someone else. He said, Brahmachari. So there's 15 brahmacharis all lying on their beds, it's the middle of the afternoon. Someone came out of the shower and he said, oh, Haribol Prabhu, Haribol Pranam Guru. Paid his obeisances. And then there was a dialogue in Hindi between them. He said, oh, Prabhupada Prabhupada. 15 brahmacharis jumped off their beds and paid obeisances. No, that's the power. Anyway, that sort of thing, I don't like too much. Do you like it? No, not really, not coming from America. We're all equal. Prabhupada says, first class man, second class man. Sometimes he reserves his criticism in the form of saying, he's 10th class man. What do you do with those statements? Yadanath, what do you do with those statements? You're a mature American.
I don't really look at it as like the caste system. It's just like, this person is paka, this person is very good, this person needs a lot of improvement.
Yeah. And Prabhupada said many things about it. He said, oh, that is first class vegetable. First class vegetable. Brinjal, eggplant, first class vegetable.
Doesn't mean the second class vegetable needs to be exploited and discarded, right?
He said, it doesn't mean that second class vegetables need to be exploited. Yeah, or sometimes he says, orange very good, lemon very good. Grapefruit, that is 10th class vegetable. 10th class fruit. Because it was made by crossing. Was it an orange with a lemon? Yeah. So he said. So yes. So it is to highlight for us the various gradations. Madhvacharya calls this taratamya. Everything about Madhvacharya's philosophy is taratamya, the hierarchy. And those these types of souls, those types of souls, and those types of souls. This type of devotee, that type of devotee, and that type of devotee. So you know who to associate with, you know what the symptoms are, like that. So it's being pointed out. So sometimes in the name of equality, we can scrap the very idea of not people having social classes, but people having classes by which we can estimate whether their company is good for us or not. And that's another class. So here Prahlad Maharaj says, my concern is for those fools and rascals. What is a fool and rascal? Someone who's carrying an unnecessary burden in order to achieve happiness. And Prabhupada tells that story of the old lady who was carrying a big burden of firewood back to her house, and the string that was tying the firewood together came undone, and the wood fell on the ground, and she realized that I have to put it all back together again. She said, "Hey Narayan, hey Narayan." Narayan came before her and said, "I'll give you anything you want. What would you like?" And she said, "Can you help me get the wood back in my..." But she didn't understand that being given anything you like, you can be given freedom. And you know the story of the charcoal maker in the forest, right? Man made charcoal. You know charcoal, you burn wood, it turns black. It's very, very light to carry, but it can still be used for making fire. So he was living in the forest, making his charcoal, very peacefully, selling it in the market once a week. And one day a stranger comes in, he's covered with perspiration and scratches, and he said, "Can you help me?" He said, "I've lost my horse, I've lost my hunting dog, I was in the forest, they've all gone, I don't know where I am, please help me. Could you give me some water?" He said, "I'm very hungry, I've been walking for miles, can you give me some food?" He says, "Come." The old charcoal maker says, "Come and sit down, rest a while, you look tired." So this gentleman slept there overnight, he woke up in the morning, and after breakfast he said, "You've been very helpful to me." He said, "I was just a stranger and you looked after me nicely, so can you do one more service for me?" He said, "Can you take me out of the forest?" So he took him out of the forest and he said, "Just one more thing I want you to do. Can you walk along this road for 1 mile?" The charcoal maker said, "Yes." Came 1 mile, he said, "Beautiful forest of sandalwood trees." He said, "There's a secret." He said, "I haven't told you, but actually I'm the king. He looked after me even though not knowing who I was. So now I want to do something for you, and I give you this beautiful forest of 50 sandalwood trees." Charcoal maker said, "Thank you, Your Majesty." King went back to his palace, as they do. Charcoal maker went back to his forest. Anyway, 1 year later the king comes and he says, "I just had to meet with you again." He was accompanied by his 20 troops, and vehicles and horses and everything, pet flags. I just noticed that the sandalwood forest is not there anymore. He said, "Any clue as to where it's gone?" He said, "Oh, I burned it all, Your Majesty." He said, "You burned it all?" He says, "Yes, I made it into charcoal." He said, "Why did you do that?" He said, "Just a little stick of sandalwood, if you crushed it, would give you sandalwood oil that you could sell in the market for the price of 50 bags of charcoal." Charcoal maker, his head fell. He said, "Your Majesty, I don't know anything of sandalwood. I only know charcoal. I'm sorry." So this story is told to illustrate the fact that people do not know the value of human life. And unnecessarily they struggle, when in actual fact, to approach God and the way of God and those who know God can help you more in your spiritual life. So here, this is the type of people that God is referring to. And finally, this word here, kripanam. A kripana is a what? Miser. A miser's got money, but he doesn't think that he's rich. This is the problem with a kripana. He doesn't know what he's got. He doesn't appreciate what he's got. The miser. People don't know that the human form of life is the greatest. So then we come to the second part. Final slide. He says, "My dear Lord, I see that there are many saintly persons, but they're interested only in their own deliverance, not caring for the big cities and towns. They go to the Himalayas or the forest to meditate with vows of silence. They're not interested in delivering others." And of course, Srila Prabhupada has a field day with this verse because it opens up the very purpose of the Krishna consciousness movement, which is to avoid the caves My wife knows about caves. She lived in a cave for her spiritual life in Greece, by a beach, which I think is not quite, not quite living on a beach in a cave. In the snowy Himalayas, that may be something else. But to go to the front, to be free from people. See, one of the first things that strikes us is, my wife let me down, my husband let me down, my boss let me down, my children let me down, my boyfriend let me down, my girlfriend let me down. Everybody, the Beatles broke up, everybody's let me down. Everybody's let me down. Okay. People are hell, which is the philosophy of, what's his name? Jean-Paul Sartre. Yeah. People are hell, other people are hell. So let me avoid people, let me go and seek God by myself. There are many people who do that. Prahlad Maharaj puts them in a lower category. He said, I don't want to be like that. Let me be with the ones who go to the city and help others, even at the risk of their own sanity. And it is sometimes, isn't it? Living in the middle of a city, trying to be Krishna conscious and share Krishna consciousness with others. But for me, he says, I don't want to be liberated alone. I know that without Krishna consciousness, one cannot be happy. So I wish to bring them back to shelter at your lotus feet. So Prabhupada in the purport, he says these things. Rather, Prahlad's interest is in the busiest part of the world where he teaches people Krishna consciousness. The Krishna consciousness movement was started for this purpose. The members of the Krishna consciousness movement are not at all interested in so-called meditation. Rather, what are they interested in? Going door to door to try to convince people about the teachings. Can you go door to door in New York?
Suburbs, maybe. In the suburbs, perhaps.
In the suburbs. In the big city in Manhattan.
Maybe some parts of Queens.
What about the Bronx?
Not sure. But maybe some areas possible.
Harlem?
Maybe not.
You think I could go to Harlem?
I'm sorry.
Could I go door to door in Harlem?
I don't see why not.
What do you think, Govinda?
Wouldn't recommend it.
So that is the purpose of the Hare Krishna movement. Okay. We're back to this verse, which says that those who do that, they eradicate people's sinful reactions and bestow good fortune upon them. They're filled with spiritual power. And those who do that are most munificent. And I looked at this word, buddhida, most, in the word per word, Prabhupada calls it most beneficent. Most beneficent. I had to check the pronunciation of that word, because I always say beneficent. I always pronounce that. When I became a devotee, I never knew the word. I looked it up. Beneficent. Okay. And the other word is, in the translation of the verse, he says munificent. So, beneficent means a person who's generous or doing good, as in beneficent landowner. And munificent means larger or more generous than is usual or necessary, as in a munificent gesture. The other word is magnanimous, which can mean generous by giving something to someone, or forgiving them. Because when you forgive someone, you're giving them a gift, isn't it? So these are the devotees of the Lord, these are the types of devotees. And this is the next part, which I guess...
We got 15 minutes.
Okay, 15 minutes. Well, I'm just saying, in order to do that, it helps to have people who are with you. And if we look at our own tradition, we have the 6 Goswamis, who were told by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to be munificent in establishing the philosophy through writing books, Nana Shastra Vicharanaikam, establishing temples, maintaining temples, and doing all that. And the 6 Goswamis actually, sometimes people say that, well, it's easy for them, they were just living under trees. That's true, but did you know they also started an organization which was called the Vishwa Vaishnava Raj Sabha. And this division, this organization had 6 divisions. One division was for compiling and writing scripture. Another was for defending Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy. So that was focused on debate. Another one was for preaching and dissemination of the word. Another one was for deity worship and ensuring high standards of deity worship. So like that. So when we use the word organization, it springs from the word organism. Sitting before you, speaking to you today is an organism. Kripamoya said he was an organism. I'm an organism. I have various, organism means that you have various organs and they do various things. My heart, my hrit saroram, does not do what the liver does. The liver is something separate, okay? The different organs. For me to be a total human person, I need the heart, I need the liver, I need my spleen. I haven't got a clue what the spleen does, but I know that I need one. But I know that if I'm in a violent car accident and I have my spleen taken out, I can live without it. Otherwise, I don't know what it does. But I need all the different organs working in conjunction with each other. So an organization is where you have different groups of human beings, in our case devotees, working together to perform different functions so that the organization can prosper. That's all it means. Other groups, well, we just heard about the 9 Yogendras, the Navayogendras. Why are they called Navayogendras? Because there was 9 of them. And they always traveled together. They go down in history as the Navayogendras. Not the 8 Yogendras. If there was 8 Yogendras, you know what would happen? They'd look around. Where's he gone? He's wandered off naked. Bring him back. We have another planet to go to. Then, Lord Nityananda. Lord Nityananda was given the mission to spread Krishna consciousness through Bengal, which at that time was twice the size that it is now. West Bengal, East Bengal, through all of the area. How many people did he take with him? He had 12. They're called the Nityananda's 12 cowherd boys. And each of those 12 had a few dozen underneath them. They were the directors. Nityananda was the overall director. And they went not only village to village, but also door to door, spreading Krishna consciousness in different parts of Bengal. You don't normally hear about that, but that's in Chaitanya Bhagavat. Chaitanya Charitamrita we normally read, which is about, it's really, second half of Chaitanya Charitamrita is all about the activities of the Lord in Puri, Chaitanya in Puri. So, when you want to do something spiritual, it still has to take a form within the material world. You are trying to move the material energy, and you're trying to move the material energy in such a way that you're moving materialistic minds and hearts, which is also a product of material energy. Even when you want to have kirtan together, having kirtan with one person is, it's fun. But a Harinam party, it's not much of a party unless there's more people. And unless you're a one-man band, you can't play kartals and mridanga and sing and distribute leaflets and have sweets. So when we have a Harinam party, we do it together. And of course the biggest party, the biggest group of people is the Panchatattva. Panchatattva. In this day and age, in the Kali Yuga, groups are important. Devotees working together is important. Because to get the job done, we need the strengths of different types of devotees working. So this is what Prabhupada created as a movement. So, for a couple of years, for 6 years I came to the temple when I was 17, and first few days I did what any young monk does. I chop vegetables and I, sort of wax on, wax off. But it was sweeping the broom, Shravanam, Kirtanam, scrubbing and mopping them. And I did that for 3 days. And then I said to them, where is the Hare Krishna movement? Because there was 15 people living in a big house that one of the Beatles had given them. So I said, where's the Hare Krishna movement? I said, well, this is it. I said, what do you mean? Because by that time, they filled up the building and it had emptied out because, the short run of fame that they had when George Harrison did the Hare Krishna mantra, etc., had all dissipated. So there's 15, 20 devotees left. So he said, well, we're creating the Hare Krishna movement. Do you want to be part of it? So when people say to me, have you ever thought about leaving ISKCON? Which sometimes it crosses our mind, doesn't it, sometimes? My thought is always, hey, I'm the person that's supposed to be creating it. Because I joined in 1974. And so they said, well, come with us. We're going all over the country selling the Guru's books. And you can be part of that. And I said, yes, great. After 6 years of that, living in the back of a van, Ford van, I thought to myself, is there anything else in life apart from living in the back of a van with these 3 other monks? I want to go to India. They said, yeah, well, going to India is very nice, but look, it's not part of our zone. Maybe you should go somewhere which is our zone. What about Africa? I said, but Africa's not India. I said, no, but it's pretty close. Besides, you'll be able to spread Christian consciousness in Africa. It was very interesting. By the time I'd done 2 years in Africa, I started to consider myself an African, which may sound very strange. I caught myself looking at a map of the world after 2 years in Africa, and I looked at England, my home country, and a thought crossed my mind, and this is the thought that came to my mind. Wow, that's so far north. Who would ever live in such a cold place? I'm glad I'm an African living in Africa. Then the other, that was the angel on my shoulders. And the devil on my shoulders said, hey, come on, wait a minute, snap out of it, buddy. You're English. So then I thought about going back to England. But before I came back, we had a book to publish. You have to publish a book. So the Krishna consciousness in Africa is quite... You can get your message over quite simply. The Swahili language is quite simple. If you want to say bird, you say ndege, ndege. If you want to say airplane, you say ndege. You see, because they both fly in the sky. Why would you need another word? Think about it. That flies by in the sky, ndege. Another thing flies by in the sky, ndege. Anything that flies, ndege. However, it's a beetle that's gudu. So, His Divine Grace, how do you translate that into Swahili? Well, it's mtakatifu. Mtakatifu Srila Prabhupada. If you want to say, my dear ladies and gentlemen, please chant the names of God. You say, Watu Ote. Everybody starts listening. Watu Ote. Mtakatifu Srila Prabhupada. Anasema. Imba ya jina ya Mwenyezi Mungu. Chant the holy names of God and you'll be happy. That's my little speech. But we had to do a whole Ishopanishad. So we had to find ways to translate things like reincarnation. When you're dealing with a culture in which there's no concept of reincarnation, you have to take a step up and create another sentence. Even the English word incarnation, reincarnation means that the soul takes birth in a body, right? It's karna, which means blood. So again, the soul comes in the blood, in the blood, reincarnation. When you say incarnation of Krishna, that's an English way of expressing something for which the language of English has no concept. So it means that God, the Spirit, has come into the blood, which is the body of Krishna, which is not very good. The word avatar simply means one who comes down. Incarnation means one who has stepped into the human form, which is filled with blood, which is not the concept. So we work with the problems of language. So publishing a book takes moving the material energy, starting a movement, moving the material energy. All stand and join together in a movement of art.
Big round of applause for His Grace Kripamoya. And Her Grace Guru Charana Padma Devi. So we're going to have Arti and Kirtan now, so everyone is welcome to please stand, come forward, and join in the Kirtan. And afterwards we'll be serving prasadam. Chaitanya
Krishna Krishna Hare Hare
Hare
Hare Krishna. So very quick announcements. First, we'd like to thank again His Grace Kripamoya Prabhu for being here and giving such a beautiful and wonderful Bhagavat Sravana class. So we can have 3 Hari Bols for Kripamoya. And also to Guru Charana Papa Devi, who's also here with us as a support, a mother, a grandmother, and everything in between. Thank you, Tulsi, also for beautiful singing, and Namras Prabhu also. So big round of applause for the Harrison family. Hari Bol! And the next generation of exalted souls, who knows, the future leaders. So we have this Bhagavat Sravana program every Sunday. Usually it starts at 11 and goes until 12:30 with the Arti and 1 o'clock with Prasadam. This week we started a little early, so don't be confused next week. Don't show up at 10 o'clock anyone next week. I know all of you are eager to be here at 10, but please don't come too early. So we will have the program again next week. Every Wednesday we also have Srila Prabhupada Meditations at 26 2nd Avenue, and that is from 6:30 until 7:30 with Prasadam. So it's a beautiful, wonderful, intimate, special program, and the holiest of holy dhams, 26 2nd Avenue, Matchless Gifts. So everyone's also invited for that. a few dates to put in your diary now, please. Thursday, October 17th is the first day of Kartik. It is also Shard Purnim, and it is the anniversary of the appearance and installation of Sri Gaurachandra. So as it is on a Thursday night, there will be kirtan, ecstatic kirtan, and also special festivities starting at 6:30, so everyone is invited. And a few days later, 2 days later, in fact, on the 19th of October, we will be having the first ever boat festival for Sri Sri Radha Muralidhar. Haribol! Everyone was stunned in ecstasy. Boat? What boat? Yes, we're going to have a boat and an ocean here in the temple room, and everyone will get the opportunity to witness this. This will start at 4 p.m. and go until 7 p.m. So this is on Saturday, October 19th. And then on the 1st of November, we'll be celebrating Diwali here, and there will be a huge festival from 5 until 9 here in the temple at the Bhakti Center. So, these are the announcements. Did I miss anything out? Anyone else? Any other announcements? Anything? Okay, so I think it's time for prasadam. Haribol! So we'd like to thank you all very much for taking your valuable time to be here. So we'll be serving prasadam in the back of the hall. And please take the opportunity to get the association of these wonderful senior devotees who are here with us today. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki.